Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to the Model Railway Replacement Podcast. This is episode 3. Can you believe that? 3 episodes in, not counting 0. I am James, and with me is...
Hi, I'm Sam.
Hello, Sam. How are you today?
I'm very, very good. I am a little bit under the weather. You could probably hear it a little bit in my voice. I'm a little bit bunged up, so I'm dosed up on Lemsips and the equivalent to get me through this episode. So if I sound a little bit off, a little bit bunged up, that's why. So apologies in advance.
It's because it's Easter holidays, so the diseases always come home with the children. I find half
Mm,
term, Easter holidays. I like to just bring them back from school, just so you know your immune system's nice and ready for the next term.
yeah.
But,
I have a dreadful habit of not actually booking all of the holiday off either, so I'm never fully recovering during that period anyway. So I tend to be working and also being completely ill. So yeah, that's where you find me right now. How about yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm the same. I'm actually on my rest period at the moment. So obviously I'm had me week out in amazing Stoke last week. Learning to be an assessor, and yeah, so this week I'm on my rest days. I'm gonna go back in for some night work on Thursday, but I'm good. Otherwise, I've been working on the boys' layout. Um, so. I'd wired it up and we just decided the wiring was far too complex. There was too many isolating sections on it for him, and so I've stripped it all back down and I've rewired it so it's a lot more simple. And unfortunately, the points now don't work, and I can't work out why they're not firing. So it's got to be something to do with the capacitor discharge unit because I just can't work it out. But the instructions are not very clear. They're just 4 black lines and 2 say in and 2 say out, so it doesn't show you which one is positive, negative going in, and which one's positive, negative going out. And I don't know. It's so I've got to do a little bit of fiddling with that. But yeah, I'm good otherwise. So today's episode, we've got a bit of a subject that well, I wanted to talk about really. So this is a bit of a sort of, I suppose, a parental guidance caution, shall we say? Um, Essentially, I like to talk about the subject of autism and neurodivergence in general and how that plays on the hobby and how it can affect and come across in regards to commenting on layouts. So that's something we're going to talk a little bit later. Essentially, rivet counters, I think, is what we subtitled that as part of the show. And it's just a pre-warning to anyone listening that we are not experts on the subject. I have a small amount of knowledge, and you'll find out later why I know a little bit more about it. But it is our opinion, and we're not trying to upset anyone or come across the wrong way. We're just really trying to discuss a topic which I think is quite important right now.
Agreed. I
Uh,
think it's a very, very important subject to talk about. And I think we will try to cross this path as best as we possibly can. So please just bear with us whilst we talk about this.
but yeah. So that's coming up a little bit later in the show. While we have your attention, which I hope is for the entire episode, we'd just like to thank everybody for all your wonderful positive comments. I think the most negative comment, and it's sort of going on the theme of comments, is the audio in Zero. My audio is described by, and I think it was Dib Shunt in the Yard. I apologise if I got it wrong. Said it sounded like I was in a bog. Ironically, I was actually using a microphone that was designed for podcasts, apparently, but I've since ditched that. Last week I was away, so that was over the mobile phone, so it sounded a bit glitchy. That's just because the hotel's poor internet connection.
Mm.
But apart from that, your comments have been very well appreciated, and we'd like to thank you all. And just one little more favor, if you are listening to us on Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating, because it helps grow the channel and gets people more aware. And we just appreciate it. And we're at the end of the day, we have large egos that need massaging. So
Extra massages. I've booked a 2-hour time slot for the end of this episode. Just echoing what James has said, I've been absolutely blown away by the comments that people have sent us over the last week or so. Episode 0, very much it was a case of audio. We were very new at sorting this out. I'll be very honest, for that episode especially, we didn't know how we were going to record it. It was all of the methods I previously used to record via the internet had disappeared since the last time I tried doing a podcast. So everybody's patience from episode 0 and then 1 and 2, I'm very, very grateful for all of the positive comments that people have had. And likewise, if you do have feedback or you have ideas for episodes, something you'd like to hear from myself and James in the future, please do get in touch with us, because we're not hidden behind some sort of publicist wall where we don't actually see your messages. It is very much a case of we're here, we're happy to listen to the feedback. If we ignore it, it's because at the end of the day, it's our show and we are egomaniacs who want to do what we want to do. But we will listen to what people have to say. And obviously, the feedback so far has been fantastic. Everyone has given us such lovely comments, and you can cement those comments by leaving a 5-star review for us on Spotify. And if anyone works at Apple, get in contact with them and find out what's going on with why for some reason the episodes currently aren't up on Apple, because that sucks. That's probably actually that's the other comment we've had is, why isn't it on Apple? And I want to say it was approved, and we're just currently waiting for one of the Apple geniuses to confirm what's going on. But we have submitted it, and we do want to be on Apple because we know it is a big method that people listen to their podcasts on. So yeah.
I think people just have to bear in mind that we are very new at this, and we are on a very, very small shoestring budget wise, in which we have zero budget. So at the moment, it is just a couple of amateurs just talking over the internet. But if you're enjoying it, then give it 5 stars.
Thank you.
Cool.
Going back onto a much more happy subject, then I'm going to say, what have you been up to hobby wise? I know obviously you mentioned that you were doing your son's wiring. Have you done anything for yourself in your hobby?
No, do you know what? I haven't. So I came back from my course last week. And it was the start of the school holidays, so the kids obviously were home and spent a lot of time with them. So I didn't actually get much opportunity to go out into the garage to work on my layout. And then since then they've gone to see their nan. So they're away for a few days, and I've actually took the opportunity to do some decorating in the house. Because my bedroom, I'll say mine and my wife's bedroom, desperately needed repainting. Because our house has a bit of a damp problem, and one of the corners was horrendous. So yeah, I've been smartening the house up. So yeah, apart from just rewiring the boys' layout, I haven't actually done any modelling of my own this week. Have you been up to anything?
I have, and the only reason I asked you was because I just wanted to talk about me. I have spent the last sort of week or so building fiddle yards, building boards. I've been building my 4 foot by 1 foot boards to build the fiddle yard onto, and I've been working on fiddle yard 2 recently. My next big hobby purchase is probably saving up for point motors. So whilst I'm doing that, I'm just building fiddle yards. Luckily, I've managed to save a lot of track. So most of the time, I've been cleaning old ballasted track ready to go on the fiddle yard. So that's probably most of the time. I've been swearing during soldering as well, because soldering is not my forte.
It's a real dark art, isn't it? Soldering. It's I think it's taken me a good 20 years to get wires to stick together. But yeah, I'm definitely nowhere near what some of these people like part of Merg can do when you see photos of their soldering skills and that. Um,
I hate watching anyone when they solder on YouTube on videos because they make it look so easy. And I just want to be like, no, I've melted about 17 sleepers by the time that my bits of joined specifically. So yeah, it's frustrating to watch, but at the same time, you know that it must be real. There can't be any editing that's made that happen.
That's it. Yeah, I think I melted a few sleepers in my time. The smell of burning plastic eventually, you get used to it. So that's what we've been up model wise. News wise this week, then. Today actually has been the day of Hornby's TT announcements. So they mentioned this back in, I think it was January when they did their well, quite a small range launch for this year, and they said that come April they would be having a TT announcement. So I watched the video this morning. I take it you did.
I did indeed.
And what did you think?
I I felt it was short. Let's go short. Considering they've specifically targeted an announcement solely for TT, I was like, oh, they must have some corkers coming out. And they
Hmm.
had one thing that inspired me, and I was like, oh, that might get me into the hobby. But at the same time, when it got to the end, I was like, is that it? How about you?
Yeah, yes. I got to be honest. I felt the same. I was expect it was, and it was a bit like their 2024 launch. There's a lot of fanfare for very little. And
Hmm.
I appreciate that they are taking a step back to try and catch up, as most manufacturers tend to do, sort of every 3, 4 years of their manufacturing cycle. They sort of, you know, um, hang back a bit. But it did feel like you could have just tagged that onto your 2024 announcement. And the 2024 announcement might have felt a bit grander because it would have had a few more products in it, even if it's across different ranges.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I don't. Um, but yeah, the LNER, I think it's a J50 tank engine they've announced. I'm gonna double check that now. I'm pretty certain it's a J50, but that actually looks quite promising. And that is a locomotive I think that should have came out in the range in the first place. Because if you're going to go into a new scale, you're not going to go build a 4-track main line for A4s and A3s without actually knowing if you like working in that scale or not.
Hmm.
You're going to build something small, like a little shunting layout or a small depot or something like that, a little branch line. So I think that's a welcome addition to the announcements. Um, the container wagons are nice, although I do believe, some of this stuff has already been previously announced when they announced phases 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Hmm.
And I think the container wagons are in phase 2, off the top of my head. I can't remember now.
Mm.
They look nice, but it's still, I think, at this moment in time, unless you want to do a very restricted steam era around Eastern region, uh, TT is a bit difficult to model in. So I say.
Yeah. I feel like there's, I mean, as a diesel electric person, it's very difficult when I saw that the first two train sets were the way you get someone into a hobby as a train set. The first two
Mm,
train sets were both massive LNER locos, like two of the
yeah.
biggest. And whilst they will encourage people to purchase those particular locos because they're famous, they do all these things. You're not appealing to as many people. I felt they could have done the Scotsman and what was announced this morning, which was the HST set. I felt they could have
Oh yeah.
done those two at the start, and you probably would have had a much better sort of instant reaction to it. But then at the same time, I'm not in marketing, so I don't know for sure. But I'm going to say nothing really stood out to me apart from the HST train set. Comes in the blue and yellow livery, a very iconic livery. But I think James mentioned that it was initially meant to be in a different livery. Is that correct?
Yeah, now if I recall from the catalogue, I'm sure it was intended to be the LNER HST.
Hmm.
I think it was going to be called like the East. No, they would have got a set called the East Star, but it's like East Coast Main Line or something like that. Um, and yeah, it was. I read it as going to be the LNER HST set. Maybe they will bring that out later, and maybe this is an additional product.
Mm.
But it did seem a little strange that they've done the blue and yellow again when we've already got them out in the main range.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty certain they brought out blue and yellow, swallow, and the GWR castle. So you had 3 varieties of H. Bad. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I was trying
well.
to. Yeah, I've got a bit of a cold as well.
So yeah, I don't think it was necessarily. I mean, for me, I saw the train set. I was like, that's a good little starter train set. Comes with 2 coaches, the 2 power cars. You can get the Bluetooth sound option, or you can get I think it was 249 for the train set, which contained the power car, the dummy car, 2 coaches, a circle, and a siding. And if I'm correct, the siding isn't big enough to hold the whole unit, so kind of bad in that sense. But I mean,
Yeah, it's a bit funny that the sidings are sort of they're kind of designed for a small tank or diesel shunter and a wagon, which you struggle to get for. What surprised me is that there was no BR Green 08 announced. Not that I don't recall seeing one.
no, I don't
Which
think there
I thought
was.
it's unusual because obviously we've got the blue and then we have the DB Shanker and the GBRF. I would have thought that a green 08 would have gone quite well with your BR A4s and A3s. And at least you could have a good setup then, I think, at least. I think a
Continuity.
DMU is missing from the range.
Yeah,
I
big
think
time.
I think it desperately needs a DMU.
Or
Um,
or even just like a diesel that can pull passenger or freight locos. I think that's the biggest thing is you've got 2 massive passenger locos, then you've got uh the other big passenger loco. So you're doing 3 famous locos, I get that. But then you're sort of lacking that. Like the 50s would have been a great shout because they can do passenger and freight. They can do a mixed sort of thing. You don't see the Flying Scotsman or the it's not the Mallard, but the Easterner or whatever it's called, the Prince of Royal Southern Democratic South Africa. The like they're just passenger locos, aren't they? And I think it would have been nice to
yeah,
get something that you could do. Maybe a freight set would have been a nice little thing for them to bring out, so that it appeals to either steam and diesel, or it appeals to freight and passengers. So you have those 2 options available.
yeah, I think a freight set would have been nice. I think the A4s actually um, used to do the express goods, which was mostly the fish trains. I think from Grimsby to London.
Oh, okay.
That was some freight workings they actually did, but yeah, it wouldn't be something you'd commonly see on the layout, and it's definitely missing that freight element right now.
Mm.
Which is it's interesting because I always find freight more interesting than freight anyway. Freight more interesting than frame, repeating. Freight more interesting than passenger trains.
Mm.
Just because I think there's more variety in there and what you can do with it, and the fact you can do a bit of shunting and that. And passenger trains are just got to run around and call at stations, and that's pretty much it.
I think with freight as well is you have the ability that you can mix and match a lot better. So you can have box vans, trucks, you can have all these various
Yeah,
different things. Whereas with coaches, you generally get Mark One, Mark One, Mark One, or Pullman, Pullman, Pullman. You get like the same. I'm not saying that's all the time. I know on a lot of the rail tours, you get a Mark One buffet coach, and then you get all the Mark Twos. So like take that with a pinch of salt. But generally, it's coaches. Whereas
yeah,
freight,
it's
you
always quite
can.
uniform, isn't it,
Yeah.
in what you get? And yeah, there's definitely that, especially when you're doing steam, there is that advantage of yeah, you can have a couple of coal trucks and a couple of vans, and it doesn't matter how big or small the train is because it will look right. It's if you've just got a freight loco with a couple of wagons and a freight van behind it, it could just be doing a short trip. Or if you've got a long rake of coal trucks, it's going from one of the coal fields to deliver these trucks. There's a lot more variety there, I think. But um, like you say, we're not in marketing, and this is the way Hornby are playing it. And as I said in the last episode, I really do hope TT does expand. I think it's a great scale. It's just at the moment, I'm curious about choices, but um, that's just the way it is. I also found that the signals they announced quite interesting.
Yeah.
Um, they what I found curious about them was the posts look Great Western, but the arms are definitely upper quadrant. It's just looking at going, why have you done this?
See, this is where me, as somebody who doesn't necessarily model in the semaphore signal era, like just completely. I mean, I guess if you know signals, you know signals. But I just sort of looked at it. I was like, I mean, it's nice. Like, let's get some more locos and rolling stock out first. That seems to be the main priority here.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're cute. Yeah, so as you say, for a general modeler, they're just a generic signal, and they probably look fine. But uh, as a signalman, I can tell you that the correct way for signals to go is down. I don't care what anyone else says.
I'm I'm going to lead that into a really fantastic segue now. If you like what James has just said, you're really going to appreciate the main segment of our show. So, James, unless you've got anything else that you want to say about the TT release, I've sort of cut you off a little bit, but I feel like that is a perfect point where we can go into our people with opinions part of the show. So, if you've got any other thing to say.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that just does lead perfectly into a subject that we'd like to talk about. And we're going to take things a little seriously for the next 30 minutes.
Excellent. We'll take a little break and we'll be back with you guys very shortly.
Look at that. You see that there? The super shiny diesel loco that's coming this way. Yeah, I see it. Isn't it beautiful? So fresh, so clean, like it's straight out of the box. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I prefer it to have a used look to it. In an ideal world, that would be nice. But I'm sure the owner doesn't have the confidence, skill or time to undertake such a job. Then why don't they just send it to Emperor's Path? Emperor's Path? Yeah. SBJ has years of experience in model railways and wargaming, the ability to meet your weathering needs, and works with you during the whole process to ensure the project is how you want it, not like it's come through a factory. Come on, that must cost a fortune. Not really. He offers different levels of weathering at really affordable prices. I've got my whole fleet weathered by him. My loco's got the full treatment, whilst my rolling stock just a dusting with the airbrush, and it looks really authentic. I might just get a quote. How do I contact him? You get him on Instagram at emperors_path, by Facebook, Emperor's Path, or emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not filthy, let's change that.
So recently, it's been noticed, particularly on YouTube, that there are many videos talking about what will be in quote brackets, rivet counters. And it's not just one channel. There's a few channels out there talking about it. Some people refer to them as gatekeepers. So jumping on the bandwagon, I ask this. Are rivet counters petty little trolls who like to destroy other people's enjoyment of the hobby? Or are they just socially unaware that their attempts to be helpful come across wrong in certain situations? Have we stereotyped different people into the same category just because they have seen something wrong? And I use the inverted commas in that. So, what do you think, Sam?
I think so. You and I basically messaged each other and said, here's a particular video that goes on about it. And the particular person is very, very passionate. However, like you've said, I think sometimes there are people who go out of their way to try and ruin someone's day. I'm not debating that. And there are people who do it in a sense where what you've done is wrong and there's no way around it. But I genuinely believe there are people who are voicing a fact, but they don't necessarily know how to word it in a constructive criticism. I'm speaking for James and myself here. I definitely have had comments where I've looked at it and gone, well, this comment is stating a fact and then I've done something wrong, but they've not offered any particular way of how to fix this or even structured it in a way that's mildly constructive. And James brought up this subject and it was a really interesting thing to try and work out. Is this something that is people who are socially unaware of what they're doing? Or is it a case of that you do have the people who are deliberately trying to ruin people's day out there? And
Yeah, sorry, but I was going to say that to remind me. I mean, you say that I've had those comments before, and I particularly remember one where the chap just commented on my video telling me that my garage was too small. and that was it. And it wasn't the most helpful comment. It's not like I could extend the garage. Um, but I don't think he meant it maliciously. I think he just meant, but what you're trying to do will not work in that space. And sometimes it's how that message comes across to people. And in this day and age of reading comments, it's so easy to misinterpret tone.
Hmm. Very much so. And I think that's something that is lacking in this day and age. We're not getting the social interaction of if myself, you, and person A, person B were sat talking about this in person, we might interpret it completely differently because we'll get their tone and how they're saying it. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's why I know me personally, I try and use as many emojis or emotions or emoticons, however you want to call it. I try and use those a lot in the way I'm talking so that people know that whilst I'm saying something that could be perceived as um, like I'm being aggy or being an arse, by putting a laughing face, I'm hoping they understand that I'm saying it in jest and not necessarily trying to start a ruckus, which is what sometimes it seems. And I feel people are trying to help. I genuinely think there are people trying to help.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that I have had one comment on a video of mine, and I can say this to James because James equally loves this particular train of mine as much as I do. So I have the old Woolworths Hornby collaboration train set, which is the Royal Mail train set. It's red coaches, and it had that Hornby thing where it could go over a particular piece, open up the bit, and catch the post. They're really old, really, I mean, poorly modelled is, I'm using quotation marks, like, and someone just left a comment on one of my videos saying, you need, firstly, there was a lot of grammar and spelling missing. But there was also, it was very much, you need to replace your wagons. And I don't think that person really understood the fact that I love these wagons. I
Yeah.
run these wagons a lot. They are particularly one of my favorite wagons I run. They're not the most expensive or the most up-to-date piece of rolling stock that I have, but I can tell you that they run beautifully. I never have any problems with them, and they're there from a like a sentimental point of view. They are there because I love those wagons, but I it's difficult to perceive. It sounds like we're sort of sitting on the fence here, and I'm really sorry, but it's difficult to perceive what is someone being aggro versus somebody who is just genuinely trying to help. Now, this person, I have dealt with them before, and it's one of the few people I've genuinely just blocked because they are nothing but trouble, and I don't respond to them because that just gives them fuel to the fire.
Mm.
And this person genuinely just goes out of their way to try and be malicious to people. Now, there are people who will tell you that you've done the wrong thing with third rail, for example, who will tell you that you've put it in the wrong place, it's missing this and missing that. They don't necessarily offer a solution, but they are giving you the facts of this is wrong.
Yes.
And I think it's trying to understand that, yes, there will be people out there who will be rivet counters who will tell you everything's wrong and that this is an unacceptable railway. But at the end of the day, that's their opinion, and you then choose whether to listen to it or not. And I genuinely am of the belief that by making a video about it, and whilst being passionate is absolutely fine, I believe that you are adding fuel to that fire. Me personally, when I get these sort of comments, it's very difficult to tell whether this is an Aggie or a comment that is generally meant well but not necessarily typed well. And I find that half the time, my easiest response is just doing a little thumbs up emoji because, like, you get at the end of the day, if somebody is deliberately trying to wind you up or give you a comment that you didn't ask for, you didn't like. At the end of the day, they're model railways. Yeah, that's the whole point. But if somebody has typed up this entire spiel of why you are wrong without giving you a way of trying to fix it or anything like that, I find that giving the thumbs up emotion will massively win you some sort of points in the sense that you're not ignoring them, but you're saying, I've read your comment, I have no words to respond with, and it is up to you whether you do anything else with it. And I might be wrong in saying that, but that's how I deal with the situation because sometimes you can't read it and understand. There's been situations I've even shown my wife or that I've texted James. James and I have a constant thing of what is this person trying to say? and it's very much a, why is this person saying this like this? Like none of it makes sense, or some of it seems so almost aggressive to the point where you don't know where this is coming from. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent, so I'll let you rebuttal or come in with your piece, James. Sorry, clearly this is pulled a nerve.
It's a very passionate subject, isn't it? And I think
Yeah,
that's why it's popular and a bit of a hot topic at the moment, because it does. I think it does upset people sometimes, and you know, I can hear that passion in your own voice there when you're saying, you know, your experiences, and I've had the same, and I think a lot of us do, and it's dealing and handling these comments. And I think, like you said, the thumbs up is just, I think, the best way to go with the emoji, because you've responded, and if they actually want to be helpful, they will reply, and if they were just trying to troll you, they're just going to go somewhere else and try and upset someone else. And I think that's a really good response. I also agree that the use of tone by using emojis, it really does help. And it's curious you say that, because I think sometimes maybe these people aren't rivet counters. I think there definitely are some out there. I think there are definitely those that just like to be spiteful, and you know, but that's in all walks of life. It doesn't matter what your interests are, what your hobbies are. You will always meet these type of people. They are everywhere, and it's just the unfortunate thing of, you know, you just have to deal with it. But I think sometimes some of the comments that have been coming through on these videos about things have got me wondering, and been thinking, are we ignoring a topic that is, I mean, very, very much stereotyped, and to mostly because there is truth in it. The fact that autism is very well alive in this hobby. There is a massive connection between autism and trains, and that's why I come back to this point of: is it people being socially unaware? Are we actually just talking to people who have certain levels of autism, and they are trying to be helpful, but don't realize that their comment has come off with the wrong social context? And I think that's why it's quite interesting that you said the use of emojis helps, because autism and Thomas the Tank Engine have quite a strong connection, and it's believed it's because the faces express that emotion of what the train is feeling, and so a person with autism can relate to that and understand the exact emotion. And then maybe that's why it's better to reply with your comments with the emoji. So I thought that was quite an interesting point there. And I think it's quite interesting because, I mean, nowadays we are becoming more and more aware of neurodivergence. I know, and despite ADHD spreading quicker than COVID across social media influencers, um, I think there are generally people that have realised these symptoms in themselves. I mean, myself included. My daughter's diagnosed ADHD, and I just grew up. And it was, I think my mum made one passing comment once in my life, going, "I think you've got ADHD," and that was it. And then I just got on with life. And it's only when looking back and seeing my daughter's behaviour and realising that that was myself when I was younger, that actually I probably do have it as well. And as it's genetically passed on, it makes sense. Um, and I think there's a lot more awareness of that and a lot more people. And I remember, I can't quite remember the joke, so it's not going to be funny when I retell this story. But
that's a good way to start. The punchline's going to be crap, so I'm just going to head off of that one.
but yeah, it was a video on Instagram, and it was along the lines of, basically, my dad was a massive Star Trek nerd, and now he's, you know, he's as he's become older, he's realised that obsession with Star Trek was actually just autism. That was just the keen hyper focus interest that he just picked up. And I think by the end of it, you know, the dad had realised that and said that the kids were like, "Well, you think?" Um, and I think it's a lot more. Yeah, I think people become a lot more aware, but I still think there are a lot more people out there that are undiagnosed that don't even realise.
Mm.
And I do wonder. We come back to this rivet kind of thing. Is that because of this strong connection between people with autism and trains, and the fact that there are lots of things that people with autism like? And one thing is they enjoy wheels. So that's one of the connections of why children really like with autism really like trains, because they like anything with wheels. And then as they become older, it's more like the organizational stuff, like the timetable, which I find quite amusing, because I remember that video you sent me. the autistic stand-up comedian
Yeah.
telling the story of him and his friends at school when they're told they're going to go out on a day trip and they're going to go on the train and then they're all excited because they're going on the train and then you've got the lad that sits at the back and goes, well, actually, if we leave now, we'll catch the 11:15.
It's I don't think I've ever seen something, and I'll reshare this video because it's one of my favorite things. I don't think I've ever had a video that felt like it resonated. So me myself, I've not been officially diagnosed with anything. However, I am surrounded by teachers in my family, like on both my wife's side, but and on my side. And
Yeah.
if you don't know, they're not necessarily trained to diagnose somebody with any form of sort of autism, ADHD, or anything like that, but they are trained to spot for signs that would lead you to be diagnosed. And I can say, hand on heart, that my brother is a head teacher, and my wife and her family, and all of that. And it has been mentioned that I am neurodiverse, I think is the correct way of saying it now.
Yeah,
Um,
neurodivergent. Yeah, that's it.
oh, cool, thank you. I need to make sure I'm saying the right thing. And it's been mentioned, not to the extreme where it was obviously diagnosed as a child, but there are aspects of my behavior and what I do, and very much the same thing of when I get into something that I love, I get into it and it becomes an obsession and things like that. How I act around people. The stereotypes are there for a reason, and like James said, trains comes into it a big part. There's a reason it's a stereotype, because you can very much look at it and see that it's something that allows people to almost feel at home. Let's use the term, trains make me feel at home. I feel relaxed, I feel calm. There is less time than I feel calm than when I'm doing trains, and that goes across to weathering and stuff like that as well.
Mm.
I'm trying to be really selective in the words that I'm using because I'm also aware that I am not medically trained or have read book upon book after of anything to do with neurodivergent. So apologies if I've said something that's out of line, because I know how I feel and how I am as a person, but I don't necessarily speak for everybody here via me. And I think that's really important for me to get across in this situation. And I hope James understands what I'm trying to say. Um, this conversation is a minefield, and James, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, James suggested this conversation, and I initially thought in my head that's a fantastic conversation to have to raise awareness and stuff like that, and then the part of me suddenly saw this virtual minefield appear in front of me, and me going, oh my God, trying to get across this field is going to be one of those things where,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there is a very big part of this hobby where people are just trying to help, but not necessarily relaying the information correctly. And it has never, for me personally in this hobby, it has never been more prominent than when you finish a project, somebody then chimes in. And I think that's why it's such a frustrating thing, is some of these can come up when you upload a YouTube video where you've done a project, you show what you've got to the end of it, and then someone goes, well, that's wrong. Rather than someone just saying, oh, just so you know, like, although you can do what you want, if you were going for realism, it very much comes across with that third rail's wrong. That shouldn't be there. Somebody once commented about the going into a station yard meant that my third rail was wrong, and I wanted to be like, I've just spent 6 months doing this project, slowly but surely, mate. Please pipe down, calm your britches, and I think that's why it's such a frustrating thing. It's because 9 times out of 10, whenever this comes into the situation, nobody ever says any of these things during a project. It doesn't matter how many times you post update videos of you doing something during a project. It's only when you finish it, these comments seem to come out. I think that's probably why it's such a frustrating thing to receive, regardless of who you're receiving it from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think what we probably should do in future is just have planning meetings. And that just be a rule for model railways for everybody. You want to do something, you're going to have to hold a meeting. There's going to have to be a minimum of 10 members from all wakes of the model railway community, so we can just make sure that we've got it right. So then we put it on YouTube. we can avoid these comments.
And if you didn't attend the branch executive committee, then unfortunately you are only able to comment with good stuff or the thumbs up
Yeah,
emoji. That's all you're allowed to put. Let's make
exactly.
that a
Yeah.
running thing.
And then anyone who wants to comment that you've done it wrong that wasn't the committee, you can go, well, you didn't mention it then. So
Yeah, unfortunately, whilst I'm not responsible for your invite being lost in the post, I am responsible for telling you that you actually weren't at the committee, so you hold no ground. See how they respond to that.
so so yeah, yeah, it is like you say, it is a mindful of the topic, but it was something that I felt needed addressing because I do feel that while I don't want to be on the side of the troll rivet counters, I do want to be on the side of the people that have good intentions. And I don't think they have a voice right now. And it's so easy to say, oh, these people, they spoil the hobby and that because it's, one of the videos we watched, there was, comments of other people who said why they don't upload on YouTube. And that's because they don't want people telling them that their layout's wrong or looks rubbish or anything like that. And when, as a community of Morale modders, we shouldn't be doing that. We should always be encouraging. And it doesn't matter if you go onto a video and you look at a layout and you think it's not that great. Well, maybe they are at a different stage of modeling to what you are. Maybe they've only just started. I can tell you now that my first layouts look absolute dog in comparison to what I can make now. But that's because I learned skill and I've gained knowledge and I've improved on my craft. And that's really what we should all be doing. It is if you do have a comment, it's maybe you should think of how your comment is going to improve that person's craft and help them rather than just be that looks bad sort of thing and that be it.
Mm.
And yeah, I think it is definitely a tough subject, but it was definitely something that I felt needed addressing.
I think both of us we do that thing of whenever James and I get an idea about what we want to do, because we've got a list of things we want to do, people we want to talk to. But at the end of the day, when something comes up that really catches us, and both of us had seen this video, and both of us had been quite passionate that whilst, yes, it's not nice, I don't necessarily think that the way it was handled was nice either.
No, there was some aggression in there. I felt a little bit. I'd be honest because I think the YouTube algorithm has found it and it started playing, and I actually had to turn it off about halfway through because I couldn't. I felt uncomfortable watching it.
Agreed.
And it's like, and I don't know, maybe because I feel like I'm one of those people that will say that's wrong, but it's very. I find with obviously doing the job, the more I've learned about railways and understanding railways in my career, the more easier it is for me to look at someone's layout, in particular signaling, and I'll go, that's wrong. But I always try and if I ever felt the need to make that comment, I would say, the signal shouldn't be there. It should actually be there because this signal actually does that. And that would be my comment if, it looks good, but if you want it to be right, it looks like this. And you don't have to have it be right because at the end of the day, it's rule one modeling. If you want rule one modeling, do your layout however you like.
I think I just want to interrupt quickly. One of the most important things that you've just said, and this is how I believe you should handle it. You watched the video, and myself included, I did exactly the same thing. I couldn't watch the whole thing. And rather than commenting and being negative about something that's being negative about something that's negative, we turned it off. I'm not saying ignore everything, but what I am saying is there's a way to do things, and the best way to ignore it is to just stop everyone being aggressive towards each other. Because what's happening at the moment is there's this mobilization of, and this person even said about Facebook groups and people sort of standing up for them and this sort of stuff. And like you said, nobody's necessarily helping the people who may actually just be trying to be helpful, but they don't know how to word it. Where they've got people in the group then sort of standing up, and it's this mobilization thing of who's going to become more aggressive in the situation, and eventually it's just going to be this massive explosion where the hobby's just going to lose out. Not not necessarily like it's going to get to a point where people are going to be either too scared to post something, or when they post something and they're trying to be helpful, even if it's worded badly, it could be perceived as that person is being an arse, and that is not how they're intending it to come across. Sorry for interrupting. I just felt like it was very
That's fine.
important
No,
to
I
say.
get your point. I think what you're saying there is basically it's just going to turn into the Star Wars fan base, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's going to be the original trilogy lovers, the prequel trilogy lovers, and the Disney trilogy lovers. And we all love Star Wars, but we're not getting on.
yeah.
Um, it's yeah, no, I think like you say, we both just stopped watching that video. It wasn't for me. It made me feel uncomfortable, to be honest. And that's it. I think people forget sometimes that you can just walk away. I've had comments on some of my videos, particularly the exhibition videos, where someone. I mean, my favorite one is the one that doesn't like my narration. It's just- which was kind of I would have found it amusing if it was one of my earlier videos, but this is about 25 exhibition videos in. It's definitely my thing. The music. Some people don't like the music I put over it, and that's just because sometimes it's very late at night and I can't be asked to talk anymore, or I can't get enough information on this layout and I don't know what to put in the middle, so I just have a nice little bit of piano.
Yeah,
If you don't like it, don't watch it.
yeah.
Just walk away. It's the same with anything on the telly. If you put something on the telly that you don't like, just walk away.
You change the
Um,
channel. That's
yeah,
exactly what
agree.
you do. If you don't need to, it's very much, and I'm going off on a tangent as I always do. I'm a very firm believer. You don't necessarily. So there was mixed backlash to my Hornby 2024 announcement video. A lot of people being very negative on it. Now, if you watch the video back, I'm not necessarily super negative, but what I do urge people to do is vote with your wallet. If you don't like something, the best way you can don't scream at the people who have just been told, here's your job, here's what you need to do. Vote with your wallet, like with TT. If you don't think TT is a good thing, don't buy it. Like, if you don't like a particular Steam logo, don't buy it. Because what happens is then eventually it comes down in price because they can't afford to sell it at the price that they've issued it out for. And I think you can't vote with your wallet in this sense. So the walk away, don't you can
Yeah,
leave comments if you want, but be constructive in what you're doing. Don't be aggressive in what you're doing. I think that's the biggest problem here is that people suddenly escalated the aggression very quickly. You can look at the comments on these types of videos and it's just got aggressive so quickly. And you just want to be like,
mm,
guys, calm down. If you don't like it, just ignore it.
yeah.
Delete the comment.
It's it's amusing. It's curiosity, I think, because it tends to be the modelers that don't take their modeling super seriously take the comments super seriously.
Yep.
And it's like, just why can't you just have the same attitude to the comments to your layout? Just look for the nice comments, and I did find it quite. The thing about the video you showed me, I had seen the channel before, and I think his layout looks very, very good and very impressive, and the way he's built it and various parts, it's a very nice layout. And that's what I look for when I look for the comments. Is the nice ones, the ones that are just gonna have a little jig at you. It just like you say, ignore them or the old thumbs up emoji and just walk away and just and if you really don't like them, just block them.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. You can delete the comments, block the person, and they can be out of your life forever. Like, yes, it's a free country, but also when you create your content, you are fully allowed to just completely ignore what that person is doing.
So yeah, I think I think we've had our own rant here and really gone into it.
we
But
the irony is that effectively I've just done exactly what they did. I've tried to be really positive about it and I'm trying to be constructive about it. But at the end of the day, like James said, I couldn't finish watching the video and it really annoyed me afterwards. And I didn't comment, I didn't leave anything. I had to step away.
yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, and I think we all as a community need to take comments with a pinch of salt and sometimes just ask ourselves, is this person just trying to be helpful, but they haven't got the message across properly? And sometimes, maybe the best reply is if someone says, oh, that's wrong, just reply, okay, how would you do it? and open a conversation. And maybe you'll then find that you've got a new subscriber that actually is going to keep coming back to your channel and will keep coming back with helpful comments that's going to help your layout look better. And, with that interaction that you're going to get on your channel, it's going to help your channel grow.
Agreed.
So I think we'll call that an end to that one there.
I feel like I've gone off your initial what you wanted to say about the hobby is that understanding that there is autism in our hobby or that there is a neurodivergence in our hobby, and we need to understand that everyone's very, very different. And listen, take a step back, understand that this person is probably passionately trying to tell you something, but they're not getting their point across. If they persist, you have the ability to walk away from that conversation. You don't need to be aggressive in your response, because at the end of the day, we need people in this hobby. For this hobby to survive, you need people.
That's it. Yeah. We don't want to push people out of the hobby. We don't want to scare them away. And I think we all just need to be, from those who make the comments to those that read the comments, is just be a little bit more open-minded and a bit more considerate in both giving the comment and receiving the comment.
Agreed.
Cool. Well, I think we'll take a little break and finish out the show.
Excellent. Thanks, James, for that really grown-up conversation.
We'll do that again. Right. Okay, so we're back. And I hope that you have found this topic that we've discussed interesting, and hopefully we haven't offended or upset anybody. That was never our intention. We just wanted to level the playing field a little bit, I think. Just, look at things from a different point of view and just get a better understanding and bring our community as railway modelers together and be as one, and not like the Star Wars community where we're all fighting each other.
Everyone's got the higher ground.
Yeah. If you have any thoughts on this subject, or if there's anything that you do want us to cover in future that sparked something or made you think of something, and you think that would be a good topic for discussion, then please get in contact with us. As we said at the beginning of the show, we are always looking for ideas of what to talk about, and the best way to find ideas of things to talk about is you to tell us what you'd like to listen to. So please do get in contact with us, and you can do that through either of our Instagram accounts. If you just DM us, I think I will need to set something up for the Model Railway podcast to have its own separate accounts, etc., so you can find us a bit easier. But we're very slack, so that might take a while.
I don't think we're slack. I think it's just that our own egos couldn't deal with a brand new podcast Instagram account. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that. Well, yeah, it's the thought of having to manage another Instagram account. I tried to set up a Lego one, so I have like the Western Signalman, and I did like a Western Lego man, and I did it for about 2-3 weeks, and I was like, "Oh, Lego's so much harder because you have to do reels. It's the only way you'll get any attention."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I can't be bothered." I just want to take photos of things I've built with the kids and go, "Look at this! I made this.
Nice,
isn't it good?" Cool.
I can appreciate that.
Lovely stuff. So while we're having that conversation, something that we mentioned last week was the Daypole special offers that they have every now and again, and that actually dropped into our inboxes whilst we're having this conversation. So unfortunately, there's no Class 73 shells left anymore. They seem to have gone. But if you are looking for a Class 59, they seem to have them at a very good price. What were they, about £5 or something like that, weren't they?
They're £5 each, or you can buy a multi-set of 4 Daypole 59 reject bodies for £10, which is insane. So if you have one of the models and you're looking at repainting it into a different livery, or you want to do something special with it, then you can buy them for a ridiculously cheap price on the Daypole website.
That's quite a good deal, and I suppose that they'd be quite good for practicing your weathering skills as well. If you don't want to attack your £200 model, you've got a £5 body shell that you can pick up and just have a practice on. They'd definitely be ideal for that sort of thing. Also, I noticed some of the O gauge models they had on there were at very, very tempting prices. I think there was an 08 shunter about £125.
You are correct. I'm looking
For
at
a
it
low
right
gauge
now.
model,
It's
that's
the Guinness.
cheaper than about 75% of the OO market.
It's the, I mean, you'd have to, I mean, me personally, I'd have to get it repainted, but it is the Guinness OH Hunter. So it's the one that's in black, but it's got the Guinness logo on the front and the side. So if you can
Oh,
get rid
I
of that.
like them. They worked at the Park Royal Brewery, which is just on the what was known as the High Wycombe branch, which comes off the Great Western Main Line and out towards what is nowadays known as the Chiltern Main Line. It's all been dug up now for HS2. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's going back in because when once upon a time I worked for Chiltern Railways and I heard rumour that Chiltern wanted to go into Old Oak Common, so I don't know if that line will be reinstalled. But the Park Royal bit is still there. You just have to go right round Greenford to get to it. They just unload stone trains there these days. So yeah, I quite like that livery and the fact that it's got a little bit of Great Western ness about it. And I think they actually ran to Old Oak Common Shed for maintenance. So they were something you could see on the network.
That's impressive. So last week you obviously spoke about the fact that you hadn't stepped into O Gauge yet. Well, here's your chance, James.
I know. It's very, very, very tempting. I'll have a think about it. And probably order it in the next half an hour. But so yeah, those are there. Those are the Daypole offers, or Dapole, depending how you like to say it. But I do believe it's Daypole because it's Dave and Polly that formed the company. So they took the day.
Ah,
So
that's clever. That's the
yeah.
commonness in me going Dapole.
I used to say that, and then I learned it. And I was like, oh, okay, it was Daypole. But it's a bit like Renius and Rheneas, isn't it? So,
It is. We won't even discuss Helgen and Helian.
yeah, oh yeah, I was like Helgen, and there's it's Hellion. Oh, okay, but I still refuse to call my Skoda a Skoda. it's a Skoda, mate.
Oh, brilliant. So James, if people do want to find you before we set up that magical Instagram account, how can they find you?
Well, as many people have been finding me recently, I can only assume it is because of the podcast, because my numbers have been growing on Instagram. So thank you very much if you have subscribed to that. And also my YouTube channel seems to be growing quite impressively. In fact, as of today, I am 20 people away from hitting 4K.
Nice.
So yes, you can find me on Instagram as Western Signalman or on YouTube as Western Signalman. And if you want to contact me, I have an email of westernsignalman@outlook.com. And
Perfect.
Sam, if they want to find you,
You can find me on Instagram at emperors_path. You can find me on YouTube, Emperor's Path. Alternatively, you can find me on YouTube at Emperor's Path.
lovely stuff. So I think we'll call that quits for this show today and we'll sign out. So hopefully we've been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I've been James.
And I've been Sam.
Good night.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.